So today we're going to talk about the show Bridgerton and kind of the Bridgerton universe. I want to take a look at how this show came to be and how it kind of affected pop culture when it first came about. I personally am a huge fan of Bridgerton, if you can already tell. I loved watching the effect this show had on so many things. And this isn't the first show or movie that has had a massive effect on pop culture. When I was thinking about other things that also affected culture around it, one example that came to mind pretty early on was Twilight/the vampire era. So I was younger when the Twilight movies came out, and it was a phenomenon. And I remember around this time, there were a lot of vampire shows and even going into supernatural shows that were coming out around this time as well. We had things like Vampire Diaries and True Blood, which are shows that focused mainly on vampires. And then an extension of that, we had supernatural TV shows. I remember one that came out a few years later was Teen Wolf, focusing mainly on werewolves. But during this time when Twilight came out, it was the season and the time for vampire/supernatural shows and entertainment. And I feel like Bridgerton did something similar when it premiered as well. Bridgerton wasn't the first or only period piece at this time. There have been others that came before it. Reign was a show that came out in 2013 and that had 4 seasons, and I believe that premiered on the CW. We also had Outlander, which was another popular period piece show that came out in 2014. And it's currently 7 seasons, so that one's still going strong. Another show that I absolutely love that came out previously was Downton Abbey. So this came out in 2010 and had 6 seasons. They also ended up having 2 movies that came out in theaters as well. The first one was in 2019 and the second one came out in 2022. I also think that Downton Abbey kind of ending around the 2020s left an opening for another period drama to capture the attention of the public. But how did Bridgerton do it? How did this show soar above the rest and have such an impact? So I have a few theories or a few ideas on how this could have happened to create the perfect mixture for a pop culture phenomenon. So while you listen, let me know if you agree or if you have additional thoughts on why this could have happened or how this show became as big and as successful as it did. So let's talk about who was a part of the show. When you see who was a part of it, I think that is a big part of the show's success, and that name is Shonda Rhimes. I am a huge fan of Shonda Rhimes' work. She is a household name, and people are very familiar with things she has done for TV and even movies. Some examples of her work are Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, and How to Get Away from Murder. She's also had popular spin-offs from these TV shows like Private Practice and Station 19, and even in her own Shonda Rhimes universe, Reggae John Page, I saw him in a previous show for the People, which was by Shonda Rhimes. It only had 2 seasons, I believe, but that's where I originally saw him. So I was like, wow, I can't believe he's on Bridgerton, and I recognized him before, so I was excited to see him in a bigger role. And she had also done a kind of like a period piece as well before, and it was called Still Star-Crossed, and it was kind of a story about what happened after Romeo and Juliet, like what happened with their families and the war between them after Romeo and Juliet decided to pass on together. But that show, unfortunately, didn't really have too many seasons. But she has done so many other great shows that I think that having her name attached to this and having her studios do this really helped this TV show. And I really think the right people were a part of making this show what it is. Another part of this is where. So I think where this show was and where it premiered on was also an important factor. So as we all know, this is a Netflix show. Well, if you didn't before, now you do. So yes, there are a lot of streaming services out there, but I still think that Netflix is one of the bigger ones and one of the ones that still makes an impact and kind of moves the needle and how can it affect ratings for TV show more than some other streaming services. I also think that the time it came out on Netflix was very important because this came out when Netflix was at the top of their game. I'm not saying that if this show was on another streaming service, it wouldn't have become popular, but I'm also saying that it didn't hurt that it happened to be on Netflix. Say what you want, but I still think Netflix is a very powerful streaming service. Definitely the competition is catching up to it, but I think that this show being on Netflix didn't hurt it. When this show came out is also something I think is really important. So this show premiered in December 2020. At this time, we were dealing with COVID. People were also home because of the holiday season as well. And I think this show was a form of an escape for a lot of people. It was for me, so I'm thinking maybe for other people as well. And I think more than ever, people wanted something to give them happiness during a very serious time. And I think coming out in 2020 during the holiday season was the perfect time for this show. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what this show was about and what it was based on. So this show was based on a book series, and this book series was written by Julia Quinn. I think already having an audience is a great place to be. You have people who have read the books, and now you're adding a whole new audience to the story. And as the plus, you get more people going to pick up the series to learn more about this story and about this family, the Bridgertons, by reading the books. So I think by already having an audience that read the series was a great thing and a great basis for this show. I think we should also look at how they decided to bring the story to life was a major part on how this show set itself apart. So they decided to do more of a colorful or diverse casting, if you will. So this wasn't a show to be historically accurate. It was meant to entertain and a place to escape. I am a huge fan of a period piece. I love them so much. And the only ones we really had, at least that I have seen with women of color, was Belle. And Belle is a good movie, but I'm kind of glad to see the direction they took on the casting for this show. At least for me, I'm glad I don't really have to worry about the historical accuracy and just focus on the love story. It's just nice to escape and not have to worry about what people of color had to deal with during that time. Even though in Bridgerton, I think they touched on it a little bit in the first season and a little bit more in Queen Charlotte, it mostly focuses on the love story and not so much the time period and what people of color really had to deal with, at least in a harsher, more serious tone. So I appreciated the escape of the lighter tone they took to the TV show, and I can enjoy with many people of many colors and backgrounds, just seeing them enjoy it and enjoy the Bridgerton world. And even though the casting really set itself apart, this isn't the first time there has been a colorful casting in a TV show or a form of entertainment. We've seen it in the Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella with Brandy and Whitney Houston. That casting was amazing. I absolutely love that movie so much. I will watch it over and over again, but at so many different diverse people and backgrounds within the entire production. And we also seen something like this with the Broadway show Hamilton, with Lin-Manuel Miranda choosing to have more of a diverse casting to put on this show. We definitely had things before that decided to go towards a more colorful casting. And when we talk about what the content for the show is as well, let's not forget about the first season was a fake relationship. And I think that is a perfect basis for a first season. Me, myself, I cannot resist a fake relationship storyline. And I think it was the recipe for a fantastic show. And like many others, as soon as I watched it, I was hooked. So once Bridgerton came out, it was everywhere. Everyone I knew was watching this show. And once you start watching the show, the little modern touches they did to put on the show was even more apparent. Like, you saw the trailer and everything, but once you got into the show and watched the episodes, you could really see wow, this is something different. This is something I haven't really seen before, at least for me. So I love the touches of the modern. So for the music, they use modern music, but with classical arrangements. And let me tell you, when I heard Thank You Next come through, I was so happy. I was like, okay, I love this show. I loved how they decided to do that. Instead of just using typical classical arrangements you might hear, they just took modern songs and added a classical arrangement to it, and I think it added another element to the show. Even with the costumes, they put a modern twist on what you see the characters wear as well. So they're really telling you, this is not a meant to be historical accurate show. This is a show, it is historical in a sense, but we're going to modernize it in a way. And I love the little touches they did for that. And I think that made the show what it is. After this show, I saw an increase in period pieces and diverse casting and a lot of other things that came after this. So after this, we had a new Persuasion movie, and I believe with Dakota Fanning. And then there's another show on Apple TV that came out, and it was called The Buccaneers. And I haven't watched it, but I've heard people say if you like Bridgerton and you're waiting for the new season to come out, check out Buccaneers, because it's a period piece that uses diverse casting, and it's they compare it to the show. And that came out in 2023. So you're kind of seeing an increase of this new type of diverse casting for period pieces. And I believe this started with Bridgerton. Maybe all of them were all in the works when Bridgerton was in the works, but it's just interesting to see how this show started it, and then you kind of saw a trickle effect in other things throughout entertainment. Not only did this affect entertainment, but it made its way into fashion. Corsets started coming back into fashion, and it was Bridgerton that reignited that style. And they weren't all the typical corsets that we see. There were different variations, or more comfortable ones you can dress up, dress down, definitely all over. And I just thought it was just crazy and amazing to see what this show can do. And you kind of also saw an increase in cottagecore as well, an uptick of that. Mostly what type of dresses were coming out in fashion as well, more flowy, a type of dress you can see yourself frolicking in a field with. A lot of things were coming out and kind of increasing after Bridgerton came out. And to see this show affect what people were wearing was crazy to me, but crazy in a good way, like how a show can just affect all these things. This show had such an effect on so many people. There was even a fan-made musical soundtrack as well for this show. And if they actually turned this show into a musical on Broadway, I would definitely watch it. I would get my ticket right away, be in front row. I would see that. There was even a dating show that aired that was based on historical, like a period time dating. And I thought that was crazy. I was like, okay, period pieces. Everyone is into period pieces, period dramas. Like, it's their time now. Bridgerton kind of started that rise. Obviously, Bridgerton had so much success, and they eventually began an event called the Queen's Ball. So you yourself can experience a night of Bridgerton. It was a really cool way to bring the world of Bridgerton to the fans and to people to experience what they saw on TV. And let me just say, I attended one and it was a great time. I enjoyed it a lot. We also got a spin-off called Queen Charlotte. So the character Queen Charlotte was not in the books and was added after when they were creating the show. But people loved her character so much that they made a show focusing just on her and her love story with King George. And of course, Queen Charlotte was an absolute success and did very well. And I personally am hoping this is just the beginning for spin-offs we see from this show. I think there are a lot of characters that I would love to see their origin story. One in particular is Violet Bridgerton. I would love to see her love story. And also Lady Featherington. I would love to see her origin story. Not even her love story, but just how she became to be the woman that she is today. So I've talked about all the success and all the great things Bridgerton has done. But even though a show can start out very high and very popular, doesn't mean it can stand the test of time. So does Bridgerton have the ability to last for many, many seasons? Each season of Bridgerton focuses on a different couple. It kind of brings something new to each season. I think focusing on a new couple each season is so nice and refreshing. But while doing that, they are still weaving in and connecting other storylines throughout. Like, it's not just one couple, you never see them again, you never hear from them again. Each season focuses on a different couple, but you have kind of seen some of them in past seasons. You're going to see a little bit of them in the next season probably. And I think by doing this, Bridgerton will be able to last, and at least for 8 seasons to follow each sibling. And for me, if you have an 8-season show, that is a success and you were able to withstand the test of time. Bridgerton took the world by storm, and its popularity definitely had an effect on pop culture. I think all the pieces came together for the show to be great and the success that it is. I am a huge fan of the show, and I can't wait to see what else they do in the Bridgerton universe. Let me know what you thought about Bridgerton and the past seasons, and do you think that this show can stand the test of time and will last for years and years to come? And also let me know if there's anything else that you think contributed to this show being such a success. Definitely the fans is a huge reason why this show is successful. People loved it. People resonate with it. So because of us, that is a great reason why this show can continue. But what are some other reasons you think Bridgerton is so good? Feel free to comment, like, subscribe if you like this video. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you have a good rest of your day, week, month, and hopefully a good rest of your year. And until next time, bye.